So, Tony, you mentioned before we started here that one David Sanders, who's got a lot of skinny numbers next to his name, he must be awfully good. Number one offensive tackle in the country, number one player in the state of North Carolina, number two nationally. That's 247 Sports. That's also the composite. So everybody's pretty much set on this guy. And out of Providence Day School in Charlotte, North Carolina, going to be visiting Columbus, and I think he'll have some time to stop by campus at some point.
Yeah, Steve Wiltfong, 24/7, coming out and saying that Sanders is going to be on campus at Ohio State this weekend, which is pretty significant. But again, I don't think that Ohio State is the favorite here, and Kevin can speak to that more. But I know they are always swinging for the fences on these 5-star offensive linemen, and generally they only land the guys who are in state, and that's about batting 500 on that if you take into account the Jackson Carman miss and previous misses over the years. But yeah, if there's one guy in the class that they don't have yet that they would take, it'd probably be that guy.
Yeah, just to jump in, I always said that Ohio State probably was running third, fourth when it comes to David Sanders, but he certainly is, making the effort to keep Ohio State in his picture. So, am I coming around to Ohio State's chances? I don't know if I'm ready to say that, but it would be a hell of a lot more telling if he never came back to Columbus to visit. Then it would be really easy to say, well, they're not going to get him. But we'll see. We'll see what comes out of the weekend and all. I mean, he is a tremendous talent. I mean, he's that type of offensive lineman that every program out there wants, and that's the problem when you're having to recruit somebody who could have 130 offers if they took time to answer every phone call that they got and everything else. But, I think it's an uphill battle.
Our buddy Michael Campbell is making the most obvious prediction out there. Of course, Notre Dame wide receiver Micah Gilbert will just be the latest in a line of Notre Dame wide receivers to outperform Ohio State wide receivers. So,
do they have any quarterbacks for the spring at Notre Dame?
Well, the other thing is, sorry, go ahead, Kevin.
I was just going to say, because last count I heard they're down 2 quarterbacks, and that's not a statement of pulling for injuries or anything. That's just dirty pool. I mean, but I'm just saying, for all this posting that Michael Campbell likes to do, he really needs to pay attention to his own house a little bit more, because he's in the deep water right now.
I think judging somebody based off of what happens as a freshman is silly. And if somebody goes and outperforms Jeremiah Smith as a freshman, that's fantastic. I will remind people that Jackson Smith and Jigba had 49 yards receiving as a true freshman, and then like 1,600 as a sophomore. So whatever happens as a freshman happens. If it doesn't happen as a freshman, it doesn't mean anything. Terry McLaurin didn't have his first catch at Ohio State until his 3rd year. Paris Campbell didn't have his first catch at Ohio State until his 3rd year. You're going to take those guys 7 days a week. So good luck to Micah Gilbert. Hope he does fantastic. I hope there's Riley Leonard is available this fall to throw the ball to him, and I hope Notre Dame does what they can do to reach their ultimate goals of being 10-2.
Did you know that nobody under the age of 89 has been alive since Notre Dame last beat Ohio State? That's kind of interesting, I think. Did you know that?
Yeah, and at this point, we're not talking about 1 game or 2 games. I think we're up to 6 now.
Yeah.
So it's quite a trend.
Basically, whenever they line up and play each other, Ohio State wins. So, and usually pretty convincingly, although Notre Dame did make Ohio State work for it this past year, at the horn this past year, but and by this much, but it is what it is.
The guys were just wanting to make for good TV, I believe.
Well, everybody's going to be like, remember seeing that? I'll be like, yeah, on TV from the post-game room, because I'd already just said the hell with this and gone to the post-game room, which was about the size of a postage stamp, to shoehorn myself into my little corner to where I could shoot the post-game presser and have to, was not expecting the Lou Holtz, where the hell is Lou Holtz thing. That was, that something.
Came out of left field. Yeah.
But a dub's a dub.
Tony, the amount of trolling that I saw for, not to disparage Jayvan Boggs and his talents and skills, but for the 25th rated wide receiver in the country, that Ohio State and Brian Hartline have lost their touch and what's going on. But he's a South Florida kid. This is pretty routine. It's pretty routine, period, all over the place. So is there any particular reason why maybe I just happened to run into more than usual?
Well, if you're on the internet, you're going to run into the trolls. But anytime something bad happens for Ohio State, there are going to be some people who are happy about it. And if you follow recruiting long enough, or every single year, there's something bad is going to happen. Decommits happen all the time. This one was kind of out of the blue, in my opinion, because Jayvan Boggs grew up an Ohio State fan. His family was Ohio State fans, so they were all happy. Like, they're originally from Ohio. He moved to Florida. Talked to him last year. I think they moved to Florida when he was like 6. And so this was a dream come true to be able to commit to Ohio State, to get offered by Ohio State and to commit. And, but yes, the Florida situation, the Florida aspect of recruiting is, as Urban Meyer would say, when a Florida kid commits to you, that just means they're interested, and you still have to continue to work. I think with Brian Hartline's track record, when they go out and offer somebody, and Boggs was somewhere in like I don't know, I'd have to go back on my timeline and look at on Twitter when he was offered. He was somewhere in like the 60s, maybe, in wide receivers nationally, because I remember comparing it to Jackson Smith and Jigba, who, when he was offered or when he committed, he was like the number 58 receiver in the nation at Ohio State. And you just saw him rise up like you've seen Boggs do over the offseason. But I know they really, really liked him. I'm not going to ever get too concerned about wide receiver recruiting under Hartline, even though there have been some ups and downs in terms of production and transfers and things like that, but still relatively early with the 2025 kids.
Yes, Steve, from what I've seen from the Ohio State fans on social media, of course, they've taken the opposite tact, of course, and said, yeah, this is a mere 4-star wide receiver. Why do we need him? We're moving on. We've got somebody better to look at. And I saw a long list of wide receivers, of course, that are on the target list.
Yeah, I looked at it last night. Kevin and I were covering the basketball game last night with Ohio State, and the news broke, I think, about the time that game was getting going, about 7 o'clock or so, maybe a little earlier. I don't know. But, you look at his ranking, he's down around 200 nationally, probably, 8, 9, 10 wide receiver in the country in his class. And, Hartline, he recruits national top 30 players, falling out of bed every day, it feels like. So, you've got Jeremiah Smith, who's a true freshman, #1 overall prospect in the country at wide receiver. I think they're going to be okay at wide receiver, whether, Jayvan Boggs eventually comes to Ohio State or not. Guess he's supposed to visit Georgia this coming weekend, perhaps, and maybe that was an impetus for this. And certainly with Florida kids, you just, you put them in your recruiting class and you just kind of put it in there in pencil, because a lot of times there's going to be some drama, some decommittage, some recommittage, some uncommittage, and no committage. So, whatever, just
Jaden Proctor left,
it's
that
amazing.
level committage. Yeah.
Yeah. Jaden Proctor, we got into there. Caden Proctor, we got into that last week. And, it's amazing. Ohio State has had football for like 125 years. They've made it this far without Jayvan Boggs, and I think they'll probably be okay for the next several years, probably, whether he's there or not. And that's not to diminish any one kid or to pile on this kid in any way, shape, or form, but I just do not get wrapped around the axle about one guy. So that's just kind of my 5 mile up in the air viewpoint.
Kevin, what kind of prospect is Jayvan Boggs, and is he gone for good?
It's rare that a kid decommits and then ends up going back to the school. It's not impossible. It does happen, but we certainly talk about that as the outlier more than we talk about that as the rule. So I would assume he's gone at this point. Cocoa High School, interesting history there, and I wasn't here to hear all of Tony's comments, so if I repeat anything, I do apologize there, but that was, Bruce Judson was from there. Jamel Dean was from there. I mean, obviously they've had hits where they've gone through. I mean, Cedric Hawkins, who's currently on the team, was from Cocoa, but there's been a certain level of thumbs up, thumbs down that comes out of there in terms of how recruiting works for Ohio State. Ohio State is suddenly much more involved with some other national type wide receivers, and I don't think that this was a move to clear the decks for other players. We're going to go silent on you and see if you get the hint and go away. I think that all said and done, Ohio State would have really preferred to land Jayvan Boggs in the class, but I did catch the end of Tony's comments, and Steve echoed this. I mean, for Ohio State and wide receivers with Brian Hartline there, not really a reason to get concerned, because when somebody's off the board, that means somebody else gets added to the board, and there are a lot of intriguing prospects out there nationally and even in state, and this just moves everything one spot.
I mentioned trolling earlier, and Steve mentioned the basketball team. Did anyone here catch any flack or anything considering who the Buckeyes lost to last night?
Damn, they couldn't even get revenge for Marvin. I mean, what a sad state of affairs that was, I have to tell you. Kevin and I were courtside last night, and for 30 minutes, they just didn't have it. And then they played like their hair was on fire the last 10 minutes, trying to steal the game at the end. The better team won, at least last night. I don't think better team on paper won, but the better team, the team that played the better game won last night. I don't think there's any doubt about that. And you can't have it every night. So that's just the way it works. But yeah, they definitely missed on a shot of revenge at the Bulldogs, and the guys on the bench were over there barking like bulldogs last night. I thought that was kind of cool, but that was maybe the only cool thing that happened, other than when OSU's Jamison Battle missed the shot at the end. Everybody came over and gave him a hug, and it was just kind of like, damn, we all just did this together this last 6 weeks, didn't we? It was more of a celebration of what they had done together, achieved, going 8-3 here after the coach was fired, than being too broken up about the fact that they aren't in the Final Four of the NIT. So, whatever.